Hi, everybody. Welcome to our DAT IQ Weekly Market Update. This is our update for May 13, episode 339. I'm Dean Croak, Market Analyst here at DAT, along with co-host Chad Kennedy and special guest today, Greg Hamm from Werner Enterprises. Hi, Greg. Great to have you on the show.
Hey guys, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's exciting. How about you, Chad? How's things in your part of the world down in Florida?
Yeah, things are good. It's good to be back in the office this week after being at the Gartner Supply Chain Conference last week. It was a good show. We got to see a lot of customers there. Yeah.
How did we end up on the curve, the Gartner curve?
Yeah, looking good. Yeah. Looking good.
That's all important.
Yeah.
Greg, Omaha's been a calling of ours for a long time. I've been in and out of the Werner Enterprises business through a few roles, but mostly Qualcomm. So they've been a big in-cap user for many years. But I first visited in 1997 as a way to get away from my wife's in-laws on our honeymoon. So I had to get out of Indiana, and luckily I knew someone at Werner, and they were gracious enough to give me a tour of the facility.
And you're still married?
Still married, yeah. And my wife shared the same sentiments. I said, "You're all right here." So, but anyway, for those that don't know you, you and I met back in Washington last year at the Reach Across America broader event, but I think it was a Vet Ready Summit. I think it was.
That's correct.
Yeah, on the Radio Nemo show. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do at Werner and just sort of give folks a general introduction?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Greg Hamm. I'm the Vice President of Field and Government Recruiting at Werner Enterprises. My main focuses are our team goes out and touches 545 individual driving school locations across the country, trying to attract folks to come and work here at Werner Enterprises and drive for Team Blue. And then secondly, I also am responsible to attract veterans and government employees to come and work at Werner Enterprises. Right now, about 1 in every 5 associates at Werner Enterprises is a veteran. And that's a number that we're extremely proud of, and we would like to see climb even higher. And so it's a real passion for me. 6-year Army vet, proud Army vet, and so it's a passion for me. It's a project for me that I take great pride in what our team does each and every day to find gainful and meaningful employment for the country's veterans returning home.
Yeah. I see on the road a number of trucks that are fully kitted out in some sort of a military theme. Can you talk a little bit about those and how drivers end up with that specific type truck?
Yeah, that's our Operation Freedom Fleet. We've got 10 trucks today that run across the contiguous 48 states. They are themed. There are a variety of themes, but the majority of them are military themed, and really most recently theming towards the family connection of military. My favorite one right now is it's got a soldier on the front with a little girl on his back staring at the flag, and it's an imagery. It's imagery that we use to try to invoke an emotion, and it's the emotion that we feel when we think about what veterans bring to not only our organization but to just just to the United States in general. And that fleet is designed, really, it's a marketing tool, but they are actually hauling customers' freight every single day. So they're not just out doing events or at schools or at shows. They're actually hauling customers' freight. And some of the best stories I hear are when one of those drivers is at a customer's location, and the associates from that facility will come out and they'll take pictures with the driver and they'll take pictures with the truck because they do evoke that very emotional response.
Yeah. I took video of a couple of them in a truck stop in Pennsylvania on the Pennsylvania Turnpike about 3 months ago. They're just striking vehicles. Just gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really work hard. I'm sure you being a creative person, you would understand how exhaustive that process is to try to come up with those trucks and to really where they hit the message spot on. It's really a hard thing to do, but it is a lot of fun to do.
Yeah. You probably don't know this, but I own an old Werner Peterbilt, a 2003 Peterbilt that I've turned into a snow truck. But
you told me that.
Yeah, it's a bit different than what yours look like these days.
It's a lot different. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So we'll bring you back in a little bit later, and we'll quickly whip through the market update and get through all the nuts and bolts of what's happening in the freight market. Then we'll talk about the veteran side of the industry. All right. Spot rates today, as we sit Monday, we've just had some announcements around a possible trade deal, not a trade deal specifically being announced, but more a political statement that we've had a pause in some of the reciprocal tariffs. That's great news. But capacity did ease slightly last week. Rates were down a penny per mile. That was kind of starting this softening trend that we were seeing both in loads moved and loads posted. April Logistics Managers Index saw a slight increase, boosted by mostly tariff-related inventory builds. Zach Rogers got a great report out on that last week. You can find that at lmi.org. The Intermodal Savings Index that Ari Ash at the Journal of Commerce puts out was out last week. Shippers saved on average 19% on spot market moves compared to truckload, and about 26% on contract loads in the first quarter. Of course, Mother's Day was over the weekend. Miami didn't disappoint. 90% of the flowers that come in for Mother's Day arrived there in Miami. Volumes in the spot market doubled, highest ever volume of loads moved northbound out of Miami. Line haul rates up about 73%. I think it was about $1.12 they moved up over the course of the month of April into May. So, but insufficient, of course, to move the national needle. Diesel prices, of course, provide some sort of a tailwind for carriers. Good news, they've been dropping for about 4 weeks. There is a global oil market war share underway as OPEC continues to flood the market with increased production. We're looking for those sorts of numbers to continue southbound for carriers. In this week's market update, we're looking at spot market capacity for April, the Restaurant Performance Index, and the latest news in the food services sector, a bit on the Cisco earnings call that was out a couple of weeks ago, and housing starts in California, which is one of the few bright spots on the single-family housing market ledger. All right, let's start with load posts in the dry van market, primarily flat last week, about 1% higher than last year, so tracking seasonally. Load to truck ratio ended the week at 4.84. That was the second highest for week 19, going back to about 2016. In the refrigerated market, load posts bounced back last week. Naturally, they do ahead of Mother's Day and some early produce volumes that boosted the market last week, especially in the southeast. Load to truck ratio ended the week at 9.73. And in flatbed, load postings decreased 5% last week after experiencing significant seasonal activity in March and April, more super seasonal, in fact. There was a noticeable softening last week. Even though volumes are still 14% higher than last year, load to truck ratio stands at 30.32. Having a quick look at some of our rate indices, dry van line haul rates down by 2 pennies last week to a national average of $1.60. Loads moved were down about 1%. At $1.60 per mile, rates remain 3 cents a mile higher than last year, also identical to where they were in 2024, as you can see on the chart. On our top 50 lanes, ranked by the volume of loads moved, carriers were paid $1.89 per mile. And in our Midwest region, there's 13 states. They accounted for 45% of loads moved nationally last week. Rates were down about 2 cents a mile. Volumes were down 1%. Also, carriers were paid an average of $1.72 per mile. That's excluding fuel. That's 12 cents a mile higher than the national rolling average. In the refrigerated market, capacity loosened slightly last week with the national reefer spot rate ending at $1.91, down almost a penny per mile. Rates are about 2 cents a mile lower than last year and about 5 cents a mile lower than where they were in 2023. In the flatbed market, after being flat the week prior, flatbed rates decreased by just over a penny per mile last week. The average was $2.15 for the 7-day rolling average. Loads moved were down about 2%. Compared to last year, flatbed 7-day rate is about 13 cents a mile higher. Let's have a quick look at our short-term forecast before bringing Chad in to look at the contract market. In the let's start with sort of a bit of an overview here for those that haven't seen our charts before. This is our short-term forecast out 35 days. Our flagship RateCast product is in green. That's predicting what rate view will be 35 days out. Of course, it more heavily weights long-term seasonal trends. The forecast is bounded by the upper and lower forward-looking error bands in yellow and red. So remember, these are for 550 mile and over loads, excluding fuel, so really line haul only and truckload. Dry van is seeing a slightly more pessimistic view of the market. That's, of course, before the weekend's news. That'll no doubt change dynamics as we get further into May. But RateCast is uncharacteristically expecting rates flat through June 13 at $1.60 per mile. That'll be about 4 cents a mile lower than where they were last year by the middle of June. I think the yellow band, the higher band, is probably more closely aligned with where we're going to land. What's concerning about that is when we get out to June 13, we're only about 3 weeks from the seasonal peak on Independence Day. So I think this forecast might change a little bit as we start to see a little bit more spot market activity through May. In the refrigerated market, Ratecast is expecting rates to rise 2 cents a mile to $1.96 by the end of the 35-day forecast on June 13. That will have rates about 6 cents a mile lower than last year. Considering North American USDA produce volumes are a fair bit behind where they would normally be, they're about 4 weeks behind. A lot of this has been driven by cooler weather in California. There's not a lot of time left for produce season to deliver the sort of volumes we see and also the spike in rates. So not sure how this one's going to play out just yet. But we're certainly well into produce season and not seeing the sort of volumes we'd normally expect. And in flatbed, Ratecast is expecting rates up 4 cents out to June 13 at about 2.20. Not a lot of change in the long-term forecast here. Rates have been plateauing for a little bit. 35-day forecast has rates up about 16 cents a mile by the time we get out to the middle of June. So still a really good market for flatbed spot carriers. All right, let's have a look at the contract market. Chad, what have you got for us?
Yep. Thanks, Dean. As a reminder, everything I'll go over is from a shipper to carrier and broker perspective. Everything Dean just went over is from a broker to carrier perspective. So a little bit of difference there in what we're reporting out. Starting out with the dry van spot premium ratio in yellow, going back to 2016 to the far left there. In the far right, lower right corner, you can see a negative 16% result. This is the premium for spot rates compared to contract rates. So this means spot rates are 16% lower than contract rates right now. Spot rates are somewhere around 15 to 20% of our total data mix from shippers. And just below that, you see the new rate differential in blue at negative 5%. That's our first negative read since September of last year. And then finally, we have the contract rate index measuring contract rates. This is a good 81% of the shipper data that we receive. From a year-over-year perspective, if we go back to November, we started to see a break-even point there year over year, just getting above 0% inflation for shippers. Over the last couple of months, that's slowly moved up into the positive 1%, trending towards 2%. Over the next month or two if it continues on this trajectory. So very slight trend upwards. I also wanted to mention on the spot premium ratio here, this is the lowest read, negative 16%. This is the lowest read we've had now since August 2023. In the last couple episodes, I had reported that it was the lowest since May of 2024. So we reached back pretty significantly there. So nice, a very low dip there in dry van spot rates. And then on to reefer, negative 12.6% in refrigerated rates. This is the lowest since May of 2024, where we hit negative 17%, where spot rates were 17% below contract rates. And the new rate differential is at positive 2.5%, which is the highest point we've seen since June of 2022 in new rate differential. One other comment on that new rate differential. This answers the question, what are shippers yielding in their contract bids? So it's measuring new contract rates versus those rates they replaced. And this is about what we expected between the dry van and the temp control moving into this year, was around 1 to 2% rate increases. We'll see how this shapes out for the full month of May as the month progresses. And then finally, I'll flash up here the rate per mile metrics for dry van on the top, temp control or reefer in the middle, and flatbed on the bottom. You can see that relationship between spot in yellow and contract rates in blue. Everything that we were just reporting in the prior slides is the percentage difference between the two for that spot premium ratio. That's a wrap on contract rates, Dean.
Thank you. All right, let's bring Greg back in. Greg, same question we asked last week to Sarah Lee, and same question we'll ask to our guests coming up for our Vets Month this month. And that is, what are some of the biggest challenges vets face when coming back home, both based on your personal experience and some of the experience of your new hires at Werner Enterprises?
The biggest thing that I see, especially right now, we went through a long period of actual conflict. When I was leaving the service, it was a relatively a time of peace. And so my experience was probably a little bit different than those that are experiencing today. Um, you know, there's a significant loss of culture and camaraderie when you leave the service. You go from one of the largest safety focused, largest brotherhoods, sisterhoods, whatever you want to call it in the world, to try to find and replicate that someplace is a very unique experience that you have to find. And I think that's something that most veterans they long for and they're looking for when they're making this transition into civilian employment. They want to find a place that understands them. Number one, number two, they want to find people in that organization that have similar and shared experiences that they can bond with. And then three, they want to continue to serve. And I think that when you wrap all those things together, it's this idea of continued service. I think that really everyone struggles with who has been part of that organization, the Department of Defense. So if your company can emulate some of those key cultural fits, you can make yourself much more attractive to this workforce. And that's something that we really strive for. We really strive to make sure that we have in leadership positions throughout our company, we have veterans. We have our veterans organization, what we call We Vets, Warner Veterans. That employee resource group really gets together and we bond, we give we give each other a lot of garbage. We have little inter-service rivalries that continue to this day, which is a lot of fun. And so it's just that idea of that shared service, that shared experience, that shared passion about coming to work every day and making a difference in your job. Those are things that I think people, especially in our community, are really striving to find. And so if you can emulate those or replicate those in your organization, you have a better than average chance of attracting this talent to your company.
Can you talk a little bit about more about that? At the event in Washington, Ginny Mack talked about vet-ready companies, and there are a lot of companies that talk about this, but they're not vet-ready. Can you speak a little bit about how you would separate what a vet-ready company looks like from others that aspire to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that we strive to do when we talk about being military ready, military connected, or vet ready, it's really we have the programs in place that allow people to come into our organization in a seamless fashion. We participate in the Department of Defense, Department of Labor programs like Skill Bridge, and some of the other transition programs where we bring talent into our organization and they spend some time with us in an internship type setting. They learn about our company culture. They learn and see if this place is going to be a good fit for them, and then they make the decision to either join our company and or not join our company. So having that ability to bring folks in, experience what your company culture is like, and then like I said before, if you can replicate some of those experiences that they had while they were serving, and how your company culture operates, you have a better than average chance of keeping and retaining this workforce.
Greg, I think you said 1 in 5 employees are vets at Warner. What does that mix look like inside the office versus over the road?
Yeah, it's very similar. Our driver population is a little bit heavier on the veteran side than our office population, as you would imagine. But again, it is eerily similar here in the office in Omaha and other places in our terminal locations. We still maintain that about 20% average.
And do you
Again, I think it's just go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do you have a driver's school as well? Or I think you said you were visiting around at different schools recruiting. Do you have a school of your own?
So Warner owns Roadmaster driving schools as well.
Okay.
We have 20 locations around the country. It's just a separate entity from Warner. Obviously, it's a 4-choice school, so the students that graduate from that school, they can go anywhere they like. We obviously recruit at those places too to come to Warner. And then again, my team specifically touches about 30 different organizations and about 545 individual locations around the country that we're actively recruiting drivers to come and work here. And that
Great.
includes military bases and those type of places as well. We're doing the TAP program events every week. We're doing Hiring Our Heroes events, Recruit Military, all those different events that veterans go through when they're transitioning to try to find their next career.
So at those events, though, you're in competition with a lot of other industries, I gather.
Yes, absolutely. It's as hard now to recruit talent. The war for talent is real. I'm sure a lot of your guests have told you, but the war for talent and especially skilled talent, is really going to be what separates you and sets you up for success in the future.
Hmm.
It's very difficult right now. I mean, these, especially the veteran population. The veteran population right now is like free agent baseball. There are hundreds of options of good companies that are looking to tap into this talent pool, and there's all kinds of different signing bonuses and things you can look at and help, and so you really have to stand out. You have to, we strive to be an award-winning company. We were just ranked a 5-star employer in Vets Index, military-friendly, top 10 company across their metrics, and so we really strive to compete for and win these awards and showcase what our culture is all about, what our company is all about. And that's how you have to do it.
Yeah. Could we dig a little bit deeper into the sort of the psychological, emotional side of this transition? Because I can't imagine that's easy. Sarah Lee touched on it last week with some of her Waypoint Vets programs that she runs, that people are having a difficulty transitioning. But coming from one of the biggest networks of brotherhood and sisterhood and support to driving a truck, I don't know that you could get any more extreme in terms of isolation. How do you deal with that in particular?
Yeah, it's a very unique skill set. Somebody that can get into a truck and drive by themselves, for the majority of the day and their entire workday, so to speak. And so but it also can be a competitive advantage, especially as we were cycling down through the global war on terror. We did find a lot of people that said, "Hey, I want to exit the service, and I want to do something that's going to force me into a more isolated, safe space kind of scenario." And our CEO, our chairman and CEO, likes to say that the trucking was the original remote workforce, and that's exactly right. I mean, so you were able to put yourself into a very safe space where you could earn a very good living. You could decompress. You could do things to soothe your internal soul while you're also earning a paycheck for yourself and your family. And so it does create an opportunity for some folks that are looking for that decompression moment. They're looking for that more of an isolated, hey, I need to take a step back and maybe a little less stressful. Although you could probably argue that driving a 80,000-pound semi is not less stressful, but it does take a lot of skill, right? But less stressful in the sense of there are no bullets flying at you at that moment in time.
Yeah, I understand that. It's you sort of you've got to be cut out for it. Like, not everybody's a mile maker.
No.
Everyone has different expectations and ability to handle stress. But I'd imagine that someone that's come back from military combat could be a pretty good person at handling stress. But of course, the stresses on the road are very different.
Yeah, I can't, you talk to our drivers at any moment during the day, and they tell you about the horror stories that they experience on the nation's freeways. I don't worry at all about when I see a professional driver driving past me or my family. I worry about all the other four-wheeled people that are driving. Those are the ones that are causing the most stress out on the highways.
I couldn't agree more. I went out to the Mid-America Truck Show in my truck, and I had my new dash cam on for the first time, because people wouldn't believe me when I said what goes on out there. And of course, it was hard for people to believe how crazy the roads are when they see actual footage, to the point where people said that can't be real. People certainly can't be that dangerous. But of course, it's very real. It's a regular occurrence for your drivers today.
Well, I'll tell you, driving a new semi today is more like driving a tech-enabled smart vehicle than it's ever been in its history. There is so much forward-facing technology, radar, infrared. I mean, it is amazing, the technology that's built into these systems today. And for it to capture what the general motoring public does every single day, you have to know that it's kind of like driving a Tesla. I mean, you can't walk up to a Tesla and mark it or key it or whatever these people are doing without being caught on camera. I mean, there's cameras everywhere on these trucks as well. And so you got to be smart while you're out there, that these trucks are capturing all this data and information.
Well, you raise a good point, because the modern truck provides a really good safety net around the truck and the driver compared to even 20 years ago or 10 years ago. So I think that must give them a little bit more of a buffer zone while they learn about the rules of the road and the experiences. I think that's the good part about technology.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting too, is that, it has also helped us, tap into another workforce. The female driving population is exploding right now.
Mm.
The national average is somewhere around 6 or 8%
Oh,
of the population is driving a truck and female. And at Warner, we're very fortunate to have 16%.
mm.
And so we're almost double that average. And that's because of the technology. The technology and the safety of this equipment is making it such an attractive space for not just all drivers, but for female drivers specifically to get involved in.
That's great news. We actually, they make very good drivers, as it's turned out, especially in the mining industry. That's been well documented. That's
Well,
great. That's
to our
amazing.
too much to our male drivers' chagrin, they outperform our male drivers in every category except for one. And so we monitor all these safety metrics and categories, and they absolutely dominate their male counterparts. So
Surprised.
there's just one that they're not. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've had in Australia, I had some in my business, and they were much easier on the equipment and just made better, safer drivers.
Yeah. These trucks are capturing all kinds of data, and you get overwhelmed with all the data that you have to consume now and try to understand. But just from the braking, the steering, the use of the gas pedal, all this stuff is actionable intelligence that comes back to us. And so
Yeah.
the female drivers just outperform the males on just about every category. So it's kind of funny.
Hey, Greg, we were talking about the Freedom branded truck earlier. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of awarding that to a driver and what that's like?
Yeah, as you can imagine, we've got 10,000 drivers, and so the list is long to get on that fleet. And right now, we've got about 10 of them running. So it's a long wait list to get on that list of that elite fleet. But we really look at a couple of things. Number one, we do have a couple of trucks that are first responder themed, and so we don't require that they be a veteran if they're going to drive one of the first responder type trucks. We have a truck that's wrapped in an autism theme as well. But for the Operation Freedom trucks, we do require that they're a veteran, that they have a clean driving record, and we go back and do some internal audits relative to their performance here at the organization. Typically, they've been with the company a couple of years, really safe drivers, really have some soft skills that we can promote, have them go out to schools and make visits for us, do the rotation of whether it's the ATA events or CVTA events, those type of things where they go and they kind of show off a little bit, and they show off about Warner and they show off about veterans. So there's some categories in there that are other than just driving.
That's really neat. I'm sure that's a neat experience to get the hand keys to somebody.
You would meet these people and you'd want to have them over to your house and have dinner with them. They're just such great people. That drive these trucks. They're so passionate about getting out there and making a difference and telling they're all great storytellers too. And I think that's what makes the difference is they want to get out and then share their story, talk about the industry, talk about what a great company that we're fortunate enough to work at. But then also talk about all the benefits of working in this industry too. Just they're great ambassadors for the industry.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a fascinating and humbling experience to talk to people like you, Greg, and Sarah Lee last week. I'm in awe of the commitment and what you've been able to achieve. So we appreciate having you on. Can you tell us how people could get in contact with you or the folks at Werner if they want to make this transition?
I'll just plug Sarah Lee real quick. She's an outstanding individual. I loved her on your show. I love her as a human. What she's doing is really is making a difference. And so I applaud her for that, but thank you for saying that. But yeah, you can find out more about Warner. Just hit, Warner.com. There's a veterans page at Warner.com if you're interested in learning more about Operation Freedom or what we do there. If you're a driver looking to get hired at Warner, click on the driver jobs that are available and please get in contact with us.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. A couple of shout outs before we go. Freightvine podcast. Professor Kaplis is talking to Jason Miller, professor of the head of supply chain management at Michigan State University. Fascinating discussion. You don't want to miss it. That's out Thursday. Next week, Peter Caratola, CEO founder of Ease Logistics. They are a vet-ready company. They're on next week. Brad Bentley's on the week after that. He's the CEO of Fastport. That'll round out our Vets Month at DAT. Don't forget, International Road Check is on this week. Lots of focus on driver credentials, brake systems, records of duty status, etc. Basically everything when you look at the list of focus areas. Make sure you sign up for alerts for our show, subscribe to our channel. And with that, another show's in the books. Thanks for watching. Be safe, be nice to everybody, and we'll see you back here again at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific.